Hey everybody, it is day 9 of the 30-day Gratitude and Guru Challenge, where I'm coming to you every day with a gratitude share and with a quote from one of my favorite gurus. Today is day 9 of the 30-day Gratitude and Guru Challenge. And my share today is pain and suffering. Yes, believe it or not, pain and suffering I am grateful for. And I suppose I have to add to that, I am grateful for the understanding of the message of pain, of the message of suffering, of what it's trying to say, of what it's trying to do. Because the only time we have pain and suffering is when we are unconsciously involved in a movie or a story in the mind. When we don't have that, when we don't do that, we don't suffer and we're at peace. And so pain and suffering has been taken wrongly. I used to think that it meant that whatever I thought was happening was real and true and important, and I had to change something about that. And the content of the thought of the movie, I thought it was the problem. I didn't realize the thoughts itself, the suffering itself is the problem. I didn't realize there was a difference between the two. And so it's such a gratitude to understand the message that pain is giving us. And the purpose of pain is that it's trying to wake you up. It's trying to wake you up out of unconsciousness, out of identification with the movie in the mind, out of the mistake of thinking that the movie in the mind is what is happening, is the people. How many of you have ever had an argument in your head? You argued with somebody in your head. You've never argued with anybody in your head. This has never happened. There is nobody in your head, and you're not in your head. That's not your identity, and it's not their identity. And so what's happened is when we say that is we are not realizing the difference between what's going on in the head and what's actually going on. And that's when we suffer. And so whenever we do that, we hurt. And that pain is trying to show you the difference. Why do we even have this movie in the mind? Some people will ask, why does that even happen? Well, if the mind wasn't creative, if it wasn't imaginative, if it wasn't imagination, you could never imagine something that wasn't. We could never create something that wasn't already. We wouldn't have the internet. I wouldn't be here talking with you now. I wouldn't have light. It would be very dark. Most of the time, we wouldn't have the light bulb. So the capacity of the mind, it's a marvelous tool that we can use for all kinds of practical purposes. But where it goes wrong is when we think that the tool is the reality, that the imagination is the reality, when we're not cognizant, conscious of the movie being a movie, being imagination, and we mistake it for things, people, or events. And that's when we act out of alignment with what is, with reality. And that's when we get into all kinds of trouble in relationships, in countries, in sharing. And it causes all of our problems. It really does. And so we really do need to wake up out of this. And anybody can easily understand the difference between the two and discern the difference between the two. To come to know that what's actually going on doesn't hurt. There's no problem with whatever is actually going on. Hey, Jerry, good to see you there. So that's my gratitude, is for pain and suffering itself. I invite you to post below something you're grateful for today. Gratitude has the power to heal you, shift you, open up your world, open up your perspective. And not just as a thought, but actually feel it, actually indulge in it. So I encourage you to, once a day at least, come up with at least one thing. I highly suggest you have a journal, though, that you journal something every day. Brainstorm in your journal. Come up with as many things as you can that you're grateful for today. And do that for as long as you can until you run out of ideas. There's so much to be grateful for, and it can be something small, it could be something big. It doesn't matter what it is. It's the gratitude that matters. So I hope you join me in this challenge. I am putting one post a day up. Tomorrow's day 10, gratitude and gurus. And so now I'm going to dive into the guru that I want to share today on the subject of pain and suffering. And once again, it's one of my all-time favorites, and it's Ramana Maharshi. Ramana says, happiness is your real nature. You identify yourself with the body and mind and feel its limitations and suffer. Realize your true self in order to open the store of happiness. That true self is the reality, the supreme truth, which is the self of all the world you see now, the self of all the selves, the one, real, the supreme, the eternal self, as distinct from the ego or the bodily idea for the self. I've got another quote also by him. He spoke a lot on this subject. And so here he was talking about when you identify with the body and the mind and feel its limitations, you suffer. And when you quit this, you don't. Now, the one finessing thing I have in there is that it's not like you're sometimes doing this and you're sometimes not. You are always doing this. It's been done, we can say. You don't know who you are, and so you confuse yourself time and again to different degrees, depending on how much you can track down on the false movie. And so you suffer constantly. Everything is a stress, an anxiety, a fear, even a hope is stress. And so when you don't do that, though, it eases. So if you don't contract as much on it, you get some relief. This is a message. This is really something we need to pay attention to discover and learn, so that we learn how not to do that, that we learn it is happening and when it happens and why it happens, and that you don't have to do that. Because, as he said in the beginning, happiness is your real nature. It is your natural state. And so when you stop contracting, when you stop imagining, you start to feel better. And you will constantly go into suffering, go into contraction, and then a little bit out again, and in and out and in and out. It's a matter of degrees. But when will this stop? This will stop when you realize the truth of yourself, of your identity, because once you've done that, you can never, ever, once again, identify yourself with the body or the mind. I call them the body mind. Let's see who else is here. There's a few people watching. Welcome, thanks for joining. All right, one more quote from Ramana, because I love Ramana. The bliss of self is always yours, and you will find it if you seek it earnestly. The cause of your misery is not in your outer life. It is in you as your ego. You impose limitations on yourself and then make a vain struggle to transcend them. All unhappiness is due to the ego, and the ego is false identification. With it comes all your trouble. What does it avail you to attribute the cause of misery to the happenings of life when that cause is really within you? What happiness can you get from things extraneous to yourself? When you get it, how long will it last? If you would deny the ego and scorch it by ignoring it, you would be free. If you accept it, you will impose limitations on you and throw you into a vain struggle to transcend them. So if you accept it, the ego, it will impose limitations on you and throw you into a vain struggle to transcend them, because that's your power against your power. It is a stalemate. You won't win. You will just spin in suffering. So don't accept the ego, the false identification. Don't accept the movie. Don't accept the story. If you don't know how to do that, join the ego workshop. Come learn how. Okay. Number one thing, though, is to realize what is actually causing your pain. This must be realized. And when you realize it, you'll quit blaming the outside, because it isn't caused by the outside, but you will see that now. You will see that. And that is key, because once you see it, you can't ever not see it again. And your life will be changed. All right. Join me if you would. Post a gratitude below this video. What are you grateful for today? You can post a few things if you like. Let me know. I love to come back and read them all. It helps me catch up on people's lives and experience. And until next time, you know what to do. Keep it real and enjoy yourself. Thanks for being here.